Good morning, everyone. How we doing?
Doing pretty good. How are you, Professor?
Hanging in there for a Monday.
I feel ya.
Looks like everybody's sleeping in today. So I got half the class so far. I'll give it a few more minutes. Good morning, Yolanda. So do we have any questions, concerns about what's going on with anything in the textbook, on the final, your group projects? Anybody awake out there? I didn't even get any responses in my chat box. What's going on, Mark?
Howdy. Not much, I suppose. Waking up and all.
All righty then. All right, we'll give them a few more minutes for people to trickle in. Questions, concerns? I have requests to meet with 4 or 5 different groups this morning. So we're gonna go through this rather quickly, and then I'll meet with the groups at the end of the class. Yes, it is. It is a beautiful morning to stare at a computer screen. Isn't it every day? All right. Wait until we get 80 people into the room. At least most of the class, anyway. All right, let's get started, shall we? All right. So we're in week 9, which means we have one more week left next week, which I'm going to, instead of lecturing, dedicate to answering questions and going over the final project, final group project, and anything on the final. So since this week we're going to finish the entire book, so usually I do a few things, extracurricular things, but we're not going to do that this week or next week. So questions about anything about that? Okay. So this week's agenda is all about Wells Fargo. I've only been banking with them for 20-something years, and they're still the worst company ever to do business with. All right. So chapter 13 is corporate governance and ethics. We're going to talk about that today. Chapter 14 is going to be social entrepreneurs. We're going to talk about that on Wednesday. So iEval. So that should have already came out. You guys are supposed to evaluate what a great job I'm doing or what a bad job I'm doing. So tell me what you liked about the class. Tell me what you didn't like about the class. What you would like to see if you had to take the class over again. So for the poor people who have to take it with me next quarter and the following quarters, what do you think would be better for me to do? And what you don't want to see, what you didn't like so much. So like I usually tell the class, you just can't say I'm an asshole. You have to tell me why I'm an asshole. And so you just, if you're going to give me criticism, tell me why. Final project due date, when is that?
March 15th.
It's the 15th.
Yes, very good. All right. So the extra credit is email me your iEval screenshot for extra credit, and that is due March 10th at 11:59 p.m. I don't want you to tell me what you said on your eval. I want you to give me a screenshot of that you actually did it like this, or you can do it like this. I don't care, either one. A lot of people get upset and write me emails saying, I don't want to tell you what I said on my eval. I don't care what you said on your eval. I don't want to know what you said on your eval. I'll eventually get it. I don't need to know who said what. So a lot of students get mad because they misinterpret that because they're not paying attention. So pay attention. All right. Let's get into the nuts and bolts of the chapter, shall we? So what is the purpose of a corporation? So we're all business majors, right? Everybody wants to be the next corporate entrepreneur or corporate bigwig, go work for Apple or some other big, huge corporation. So a friend of mine got offered a job to go work. He did some consulting for Google, and they wanted to bring him on full time. And he said, well, what are you offering? So they're offering a couple $100,000. He goes, I don't care about the money. He goes, what about stock options? They go, no, we don't give stock options anymore. So he said, well, I can go work for any company and make the same amount of money with stock options. So why would I want to work for Google? So sometimes working for a big corporation is not the greatest thing in the world unless you need the experience. He didn't need the experience. He wanted the stock options. And unfortunately, big companies like Google, Apple, Microsoft, many of these big companies, unless you're the CFO, CEO, or going to the C-suite, you're not going to get any stock options. So just remember that when you graduate and you want to go work for big corporations, the chance of you getting stock options are very, very slim to none. And working for maybe a startup or something like that, if that's what you're looking for, then that would be something you might be able to get. So corporation is the stockholders are the owner of the company, and the employees are the The people who work for the company, they don't own the company. Of course, so some employees do buy stocks in the corporation, or sometimes they're given stocks. So that's another a whole different issue. But most of the time, corporations are owned by stockholders and ran by employees. Proprietorship is the owner runs the business. For example, mine is a small corporation, so I am the proprietor, and I also own and run the business. Partnerships, two or many. So partnerships, remember, if you ever get into a partnership, you want a way to get out of a partnership. So make sure you always do that at the very, very beginning of a partnership. Last thing you want to do is go into business with your partner's family and everybody that they're legally responsible to. Corporate governance is a process and structure that provide the ultimate decision-making authority for the firm. Where does the firm want to end up as a company? So this is usually done on paper and a charter. It'll tell you exactly what the corporation stands for, what they want to do, and the process to ultimately get them there. All right, and then there's also many other different forms of corporations and limited liability partnerships, all this other type of organization, and especially within the last few years, there's been some new types of organizations. But they also break down into corporations. So limited liability is also a corporation, and legally, they group them all within these three types of categories. Okay, so there's this guy Burrell and Dodd, and they have this very public argument about what was going on with a corporation, how it should act, how it should benefit the community, or should it benefit just the shareholders. So Professor Dodd wrote that the corporation should be run for the benefit of the entire community, and Burrell said no, it should be run for just the shareholders. So what do you guys think? You guys get to participate now.
I feel like in general, there should be a balance between both.
There should be a balance between both. So you don't think if you're going to buy stock in a corporation that the corporation should have your best interests at heart to make you as much money as possible. That's the whole reason why you buy stocks, right? Is to make money.
Well, if you wanted to go on a baseline, yes. But then you could say all businesses exist only to make money.
Well, that's mostly how they started out.
Oh yeah, but I think that over time, as like they make a lot more money than they know what to do with, like, and this is obviously like a personal opinion, but I feel like corporations in general should start, I guess, being charitable with themselves if they find out that they're, well, it's just to, well, for one thing, it's for publicity's sake, for good press, but also because it is like just a whole lot of financing that could go into more things than just buying people public jets and stuff like that.
So you think if a corporation makes money, they should feel guilty and give money away?
Not feel guilty, just, be a nice, like like a corporation should be like a person. Just be nice with what they've got.
A corporation is a person. Niall, go ahead. You had your hand up for a while.
Well, in the part of making as much money as possible, it's probably not in the corporation's interest to piss off the other stakeholders. For example, like the BP oil spill. Well, I would want to prevent oil spills from happening in the sense that we will stay profitable and not piss off our customers, in a sense. So it kind of works for itself.
So you think there should be a happy balance between making money and taking care of the community?
Well, I think the taking care of the community works out when you're trying to be as profitable as you can, at least in today's world, because if the market can change based on what consumers want. So if you start doing unethical things and the market changes, you're not creating a profitable environment for your shareholders.
So the community, who gives a shit about the community? That's the government supposed to take care of the community, right? We're a corporation. All we care about is making money. and if we're going to keep our customers happy by making the products they want to make, and when we can't do that any longer, then the company or the people go somewhere else. But we're going to try and make them happy, right? It's all in our best interest to make money. Joyce, you wanted to say something?
So it's where I come from, there's a saying that goes, the right hand washes the left and the left hand washes the right. So it's a symbiotic relationship whereby if the corporation invests in the community, it will get back from the community. And it's a matter of sustainability and growth, because if you're connected to the society or the community where your business is flourishing and the employees stem from that environment, it's it goes hand in hand. So
Yeah,
the corporation
that is a very good point. So many times we're one big happy family and we need to get along. So we need to take care of the community, take care of our customers, and all those different things. Giuseppe, you had something you want to say?
Yeah, I agree with Joyce and Mark. I feel like I don't know if the corporation necessarily has to take care of the community, but I think that they have to be responsible for what occurs in the community to a certain extent. Because when a big corporation comes into like a community or something, and then they start polluting or doing bad things, unethical things, and then it has negative effects on the community, then I think that they have to be responsible to a certain extent, and it works both ways because they both have to be like equally responsible for what happens, I feel like.
Well, that's what the government's for. That's what Big Brother's for, to step in, slap you on the hand and say, hey, you're not supposed to spill oil in the Alaskan Bay. You're not supposed to pollute the air with your toxic waste. So so if I have somebody telling me what not to do, then I don't have to worry about it, right? I just do what I want to do until the government tells me I can't do it anymore. Yolanda, go ahead.
You're the way I'm taking what you're saying is you're taking a Milton Friedman point of view, like the corporate responsibility. The corporate responsibility is to make profits, right? Which is great. That's true, and they do better the community by providing good products. So that's correct. But my question has always been, is why does the corporation get to sort of do whatever they want until the government tells them, oh no, you shouldn't be doing that? Like they should be, we're all adults, right? So we should be able to say, okay, that's not correct, even though it will increase our profits, but it's not good for our environment, or it's not good for whatever, and so we should not do that.
That's a very good question, and I'm actually going to go over it a little bit more in later. But corporations are self-governing. There's nobody telling them what to do, what not to do. The government has no say in the way you run your corporation or your company. But if you break the law, then they can step in. I mean, that's why some of these agencies are out there. Environmental agency. Some of the within the last few years, they've come in with some of the banking regulations and things like that. So you can't do, you can't go and screw over a bunch of people to make money. Even though, I've been kind of on the corporation side, I'm, saying, hey, we're just going to make money for, I'm kind of trying to bait you guys a little bit for some, for some conversation. But I'm going to go over what exactly Wells Fargo did, and they pretty much had that attitude. It's like, screw you, we're just here to make money for our stockholders. We don't give a shit. And Wells Fargo has done that for years and has been getting away with it. And they get fined a few $1 million, but they make, they get fined $2 million, but they make $5 million. So tell me, what is the incentive of, trying to do the right things? So the fines don't equal the price of doing business. The fines equal maybe half of what they made, screwing people over. So, all right. So anything more about corporations? Anybody want to add?
So what you're saying is, if you make enough money, there are no consequences as a corporation.
Pretty much, yeah. The consequences, they're dollar amounts basically. Um,
The fines that like tech companies are getting, like the lawsuits they're facing in Europe and in some other countries. I mean,
Yeah.
they're getting big big slap on the wrist for some of the things they've done. So you can't just do anything you like, I guess.
No, and that's the biggest problem, especially with the new tech companies. I'm saying new within the last 10, 20 years. There is no regulations, there are no laws governing how they can conduct business. The Constitution, unfortunately, has not been written for the way that we're communicating, the way that we're doing business nowadays. So, they need to make an amendment and actually change some of the laws, and because these companies are basically getting away with murder, with the way they do, censoring people, saying, taking away the First Amendment, telling them what you can say and what you can't say. If it doesn't go along with what their agenda is or what they believe in. So, like I said, corporations are self-governing. So if the top of your corporation believes a certain way, everybody within that corporation believes the same way. And if you go against that, they're going to get rid of you or not let you voice your opinion. Anybody want to argue that one with me? Go ahead. No, because it's all true because it's everything that's been in the news lately. So that, I mean, like I said, corporations are self-governing. So if they break certain laws, then yes, the government can do something about it. If they don't break certain laws because they haven't developed laws to regulate them. And that's another thing too. Do you really want all these laws to regulate corporations? Even though some of these corporations do some bad things, do you want to have so many regulations that it's going to be very, very difficult to conduct business or to do business or to make money?
I think in that sense, that argument tends to be taken to the extreme, because there can always be a balance. There can always be a balance whereby when you're regulated, you can still do your business. But when the argument is pushed forward, it comes across as though regulation puts so much constraint on businesses and they cannot function or make money. But even with the little regulations they have, they're still making money. So somebody has to be responsible or call their conscience to what the evil they do with the way they pollute the environment and abuse people's rights.
Sometimes there are, and a lot of times they're not. What Facebook and Google have done, they're pretty much monopolizing everything that you see on social media, or like when you Google something, and Google can actually make it so you can't find certain things that you're looking for. They do that with very conservative voices. They do that with very liberal voices. They want you just to know what's in the middle of the road type stuff. So when you Google, like I said, that one time I heard about the group that was some radical conservative group, I went to go Google it, and all I got was they are they're basically terrorists. That was everything I got. They were terrorists. They didn't say anything else other than that. So, like I said, they can censor what you can actually read or understand. Yolanda, you had a question?
No, I didn't. But I guess my point or my question to that, my argument to that would be, like you say, they can self-regulate, right? Because they're a corporation.
Yeah.
They're technically a person, right? So if
Technically.
they're provided rights because I guess they make money, even though they're quote unquote a person. However, I can't do a lot of the things that they do without any punishment. So that's sort of like the only like real criticism that I have in the way that the United States, maybe the world, I'm not really sure, treats corporations is they sort of just allow them to do things specifically the most profitable ones like Facebook, right, where they sold, information about their subscribers to, was it Cambria, right? Like there was this whole thing, they did go and they had to go to Congress and be questioned and stuff. But
Yeah.
first of all, Congress doesn't even know how Facebook works, which is
Well,
funny.
that's another
And
problem
then,
too. Yeah.
secondly, first of all, who even followed all that? Because who has time, right? And secondly, what actually came of it? Nothing. Facebook is still who they are, and there's no consequences. But regular people, like me, that could never be okay, or I could never go about my life without any consequences like that.
Well, the biggest thing is why Facebook got away with that is because every time you use Facebook, you agree to let them do whatever the hell they want. Let them use your pictures, let them invade your privacy. And so since you gave them the right to do that, that's how they're getting away with it. And then there's no consequences from the government because there are no laws against that. So the right to privacy, since you gave up your right to privacy, whenever you use an app, if you ever read the terms and conditions of all the stuff that goes on, nobody ever does. You're basically giving up all your rights to your privacy. And
But is
that's
it
how,
right? That's the question. Is it right? Like Dave Chappelle recently,
well, there's no laws. So
said this, right? But like Dave Chappelle, right? So he recently, he back in the early 2000s, did a show called the Chappelle Show, and Comedy Central essentially gave him a bad deal, and so he walked away. He lost his rights, he lost his name, he lost his show, and now they started to, show it on Netflix and HBO Max, and he had a huge problem with that because they just took it for him. Like they didn't, it was his name, but he's powerful now, and he has the voice of the people, or he has the loyalty or the following of the people. So he asked the people to not watch that, and so because of his influence, he was able to get his money back, his license back, everything regarding that show.
Mhm.
Even though technically in the contract, he wasn't allowed to do that because the contract stated that they could do whatever they wanted with that. But he asked, is it right? Is
Well,
it
there's no
ethical?
laws.
Is it right?
There's no laws against it. And if you give away your rights, then you can't argue them later. And that's something you guys need to realize, especially with the way technology is going, is you're giving up a little bit of your rights, a little bit of your civil liberties every time something changes. And data is becoming increasingly more important to these large companies. So they're going to collect as much as they can, and they're going to sell as much as they can. So, all right. So before we get too far off topic, let's get back to what we were talking about. All right. So we talked about Dodd and Burrell having the argument publicly that a corporation is good or it's evil, and it should be either beholding to its shareholders or beholding to the community itself, which I think we're going to have to agree with Joyce is, one hand washes the other. And it's always good business to be nice and kind and help your community out. I haven't been in business for 20 years because I pissed off my customers and did whatever I wanted. It doesn't work that way. So. All right, so shareholder primacy, the belief that a corporation should be run primarily or exclusively for its shareholders. That's Burrell's philosophy. So the shareholders are the legal owners, the financial capital, the critical resource. So without shareholders, the company wouldn't have enough money to run, be in business. And the single objective is to maximize profits. My friend who does the consulting for these large companies, that's usually his philosophy. He's there for the shareholders. He's to make sure that the company does what they're supposed to do for the benefit of the shareholders to make them maximum profit, not by doing things shady, but by doing correct things. He does taxes. So for example, when he worked for Google, Google said, yeah, let's just go ahead and pay this $20 million in taxes because we hardly paid any taxes this year. He said, but wait, you only have to pay 10 million. And they go, no, we're just going to pay the 20 million because we think that's fair. So his philosophy is, by law, you're only supposed to pay 10 million. That's what you should pay. But Google says, well, we're just going to pay an extra 10 million because we feel guilty or whatever. whatever reason they come up with. All right, so the purpose of the corporation are legal persons owned in a very real and legal sense by their shareholders. Corporations can own property, assets, equipment, cars, airplanes, these private jets that these corporation owns. They can own RVs. If you go down to Newport Beach and to the harbor there, you'll see at least 3 or 4 different branch offices. So the boats are actually named branch office. So property rights claim the residual earnings of the corporation or the profits after all stakeholders have been paid. So that would be your dividends. Monitor the management team, take sure that the team works in its best interest. Nexus of contracts, a model of the corporation suggesting that the firm is in the sum total of its contracts with different stakeholders. So these corporations have contracts with the stakeholders and with the stockholders. So everything's in writing in a contract. Stakeholders, we haven't talked too much about them. The belief that a corporation should be run for the benefit of its entire stakeholders with no group enjoying primacy or decision making. So that is everybody involved with the company, not just the stockholders. Dodd believed that because the community grant the corporation the right to exist, the manager should run the corporation for the benefit of the community as a whole. So the community is actually part of the stockholders, not stockholders, stakeholders. And don't get those confused. Stakeholder is what you see here. Stockholders are somebody who buys stocks or are the owners of the company. So internal stakeholders are the employees, the managers, and the owners. External stakeholders are the suppliers, your vendors, society at large, everybody that is affected by your product. The government can even be a stakeholder. Creditors, obviously, people who you borrow money from are going to have a stake in what you're doing. Shareholders and customers. So all these people, all these different people are stakeholders within the company, even though they're not stockholders. All right. Corporation could not exist without a charter from the state, and therefore a corporation's first duty was to provide for the good of the community. So each state gives you a charter. So the state of California, the Franchise Tax Board, they're called different names in different states. So, and many states have what they call a corporate veil. Here in California, it doesn't work that way. A corporate veil is basically the owner of the company, the major stockholders are not responsible for what the company does financially. Their only financial obligation is what they put in buying stocks. So Nevada, Florida, and Maryland are especially really bad at this. That's why you have some of these companies who are known for fleecing people or taking advantage of people are actually incorporated in these states, because what will happen is once they either break the law or the government comes after them, they close the corporation and they start a new one. And as far as the government's concerned, once that corporation is closed, they are free and clear to do whatever they want. And the people who are the stockholders, the people who own the company, are not liable financially or morally. So what do you think about that? So you think those states should change the laws to make them at least liable for their products that they're selling if they're defective and hurt somebody?
Well, yeah, if you cause harm to somebody, it seems justified that punishment be carried out in one way or another.
But the law says that they're not responsible.
Well, I think there's something called tortious law that holds companies responsible for acts like that.
But the company, they just close the company down, dissolve the corporation, and that's it. There's nobody left.
And that's what I think people would call legal shenanigans. Like, just because you put on a different mask does not mean you never did the wrongs that you did. Like,
No.
That just sounds like a hit and run with extra steps.
You know, it is. And it's been that way for many, many years, and the government still hasn't done anything about it. And that's because the federal government's not going to tell the state governments what to do, which we're having a lot of issues with what's going on right now with that. So, not to turn this into a civics or a government class, but that's, you know, corporations are governed by each state and their charters and what's going on. They make the laws for each state. It's a little bit different. So there's no consistency throughout the United States when it comes to corporations, even though a corporation's free to move about the country, right, and do business however they want to do business, and especially on the internet now. So I always tell this story. I bought there's these little pockets that go in between the seat and the console on your car. So this really nice one had a cup holder, you know, so I followed the link on Instagram and I ordered it, and I get this cheesy piece of plastic envelope that was, you know, had nothing in it. And then I complained and they said, well, that's the part number you ordered, blah, blah, blah. And I go, well, I ordered whatever the link clicked me to, and it showed a picture of this. And they said, yeah, you don't like it, tough shit. We don't give a crap. And then basically they went out of business, and then they reopened selling the same exact thing, you know, a month later as a different company. And I complained to Instagram. Instagram said, we don't care. We didn't recommend you buy anything off our website anyway. Those were exact words from Instagram. So, you know, it's like, you know, we don't endorse anybody, you know, you shouldn't buy anything from our website, you know, but yet here they are taking all this money from advertisers, right? Because this was an advertisement that popped up. It was an organic advertisement. So it popped up, and I know they paid for it. So, you know, so it's even the company doing business, you know, Instagram didn't care.
maybe the federal government should just open up a new division to handle this kind of problem. Because it seems pretty pervasive, actually.
Well, it is, and it happens quite a bit. You know, couple of students last quarter, you know, they bought an exercise machine off the internet, and they, you know, they didn't get their money back because it wasn't exactly what they saw, and they were mad. And YouTube does the same thing. Yes, exactly. YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and you know, so there's nothing. You know, the federal government doesn't regulate. You know, they're supposed to not be able to interfere with this type of thing, and that's because of the different laws that are set up and the way they're set up for free communication, freedom of speech, and all this other stuff. So the federal government can't get involved, and then the states from where they're selling them from, they don't get involved either, and they don't care.
So apathy is the issue here. That's a shame.
Exactly. All right.
But that's just basically, sorry to cut you off. That's just basically like a practice that I guess now Facebook and big corporations like that are online now are essentially not stealing, but using that was already in place, but by advertisements and on television, right? Because
well, yeah, and then these corporations don't care because they're paying for their advertisements, so they're making their sales, and they don't care whether it's legit. It's not their responsibility to make sure that the companies are legitimate or not legitimate or doing business the way they should. So Instagram doesn't care. It's not their responsibility to regulate, to police, or do anything about it, right? All they care about is that company paid them money for advertisement, and they put their advertisement on.
Professor, a quick question. Okay, so many of these cable companies that carry adverts for other products, are they held responsible for the products?
They cannot be held responsible.
Then if there's no law that holds that channel responsible, I guess Instagram too is.
You know, if I was to believe everything I read, I would be ripped and cut and buff because I could buy that Gen X mail or whatever it is that's advertised on every channel late night on TV, you know. And you know, if I believe everything I read in my email, I should be a billionaire by now because I've won so many different lotteries just because of my email address. You know, I had somebody call me up the other day on the phone, and they're trying to get information from me, you know, as a scam. And I said, well, would you like my mom's maiden name, and perhaps you'd like my social security number too? That would make things a lot easier for you, wouldn't it? And they just hung up. But anyway, so there, you know, there's a lot of things going on, and you know, and then the international community. That's another thing too, is we can't even regulate international law. So all of these things that you see on the internet, the company that sold me the little pouch that was supposed to be something different was an international company. So even if even if they were to break laws here in the United States, how are we supposed to, you know, enforce them? Because they're in another country where they have different laws. So you couldn't even do that. All right. So a normative stakeholder view is that the corporation has legal and moral obligations to work for the benefit of all its stakeholders. Customers have a right to products that do not harm them. Employees have a right for fair wages and safe working conditions. So that is a view, not a law, by the way. So corporations are self-governing. That means they can pretty much do business the way they see fit, as long as they don't break laws. They're governed by certain agencies like the EPA, other agencies. You know, don't throw your garbage in the river and pollute the water, you know, the drinking water and all this other good stuff. So they do have a few laws, and a few governments do some enforcement. But in the most part, you have so many different corporations. How are you going to regulate all of them? There's not enough manpower in the world to check on to see if these governments are doing what they're supposed to be doing. For example, the state of California sends us forms that we have to fill out saying we don't have any hazardous chemicals. Not once in 20 years have they ever come to my office and say, hey, let me check underneath your sink and see if you have any hazardous chemicals. Or let me look in your warehouse to see if you're using any hazardous chemicals. I could be, and they would, you know, they would never know it. So there's no way to regulate that. They don't have the manpower to enforce it. We don't use chemicals for anything other than Windex or what is that? The green stuff. Oh, I hate the smell of that. It smells like bad licorice. So yeah, simple green. So the technicians use that on the machines and stuff. But back in the late 70s, they used to use chemicals to clean the typewriters. They would actually take them apart. They would soak these typewriters in this chemical. It's been banned from every state except for Arizona now. So, and plus they don't have typewriters anymore, so they don't use that anymore. But that's kind of like the thing in our industry, is that was the thing that was hazardous to people. It actually caused cancer and everything, so they banned it. So governance, boards, and incentives, agency problem, a consequence of the separation of ownership, shareholders and principals as opposed to managers and agents. So a person who owns a company is a principal, and the agents are the employees that work for the company in a corporation. So sometimes you'll see that principals and agents. Agency problem occur when the goals or principles differ from those of the agents. And we will get into that with the little Wells Fargo logo icon that I put on the bottom of every page. Fiduciary duty to work the best interest of the shareholders. So actually the agents do have a fiduciary, which is legal duty to work for the best interest of the shareholders. So as an employee, you can actually be held legally responsible for trying to screw over the owner. So if you do something that is illegal and you did it intentionally to make your shareholders or principals look bad or guilty or whatever, you actually can be held legally responsible for that. So like lawyers, that is a very big thing for lawyers, is they have to act in the best interest of their clients. Financial institutions are supposed to be upheld to this standard, but they are not. That's why they can get fined if they don't do that. So principals, the owners of a resource of a piece of property, and the corporation shareholders are considered principals. Okay. Agents, individuals or groups hired to administer the property or resources of principals. The managers of a corporation are considered to be agents of the shareholders. So a tender offer, an offer by those hoping to control the corporation to purchase shares of dissatisfied investors. So if you have shares in a company and you're dissatisfied, somebody might give you an offer and say, hey, we're going to buy your shares from you. You say, here you go, take them. Proxy fight, an attempt by dissatisfied investors or stakeholders to gain seats on the board of directors or to influence corporate policy. Some board of directors, like in my company, there's 2 of us, me and my wife. And others, like Walmart, there's 20 or 30 people on the board. So you can see each corporation is a little bit different. The way, my wife owns 51% of the company. So that way she can just take everything if we ever decide to go different ways. Just kidding. So corporations, and that's another thing too, is, the main principle of a corporation, like say Henry Ford started his company many, many years ago, and he kept the majority of the stocks. So he is a majority shareholder, and his votes, he can pretty much vote however he wants, and everybody has to do what he wants to do. So that's another thing in a corporation. For me, I have, other than, I can pretty much do whatever I want because I have nobody to answer to. So which reminds me, when I had a guy call and complain, he says, I want to speak to your manager. And I told him, no, there is no, I'm the manager. I'm the owner of the company. No, I don't believe you. I want to talk to who you answer to. And I go, okay, I'll transfer you to my wife, but she's not going to be very nice. And so he got a little upset. So he goes, oh, I want to know who you answer to. And then we got on a religious tangent on that one. Then he didn't like that too much. So told my answer to God. That was it. That was the only other entity, and he wasn't too happy with that. All right. So the agency problem is modern corporation owned by principals, managed by agents. So interests may be different, hurting principals. So now we're going to get into what we're talking about, Wells Fargo being the lovely bank that they are. The principals and the owners and the managers, how they want the company ran and what the agents are supposed to do and how they're supposed to do it are usually 2 different things. A board of directors, how are we doing on time? We're doing good. Okay, board of directors, a group of individuals who monitor the executive team of the corporation and ensure that those executives are acting in the best interest of the shareholders. So if you're acting always in the best interest of the shareholders, doesn't necessarily mean that you're acting in the best interest of the company or its employees. And then fiduciary duties, like we talked about, the legal obligation of an agent or fiduciary to act in the best interest of the principal of the owner. Fiduciary duties include the duty of loyalty to work the optimal good of the owner and the duty to care to not take care undue risks that would jeopardize the principal. So not doing something illegal. So the inside directors, executives or managers working inside the company who also hold seats on the board of directors. So they also own stocks. They also work in the company. That would be the president and the CEO. Outside directors, member of the board of directors, not employed by the corporation in any other role. That would be an example of Walmart has many, many different executives. Large corporations like that will have many different board members that will sit on the board to do the director. Okay, so usually they do, they'll bring them on for specialty skills. A lot of well-known professors who've been published in certain areas will be on the board of directors for that particular reason, or other business professionals will be. So if you're a president and CEO of Coca-Cola, Walmart might say, hey, why don't you be on our board of directors too? And by the way, they get paid for that. So the purpose of the corporation for shareholders, return on investment, customers, reliable products, suppliers, reliable partners, somebody you want to be able to, you can also make money. Employees, they want to give them stable jobs. Government, to be good citizens. And natural environment, sustained practices. Okay, so this is where we start getting into some problems. So when corporations start doing pay for performance or bonuses, then they start having some problems where you get some unethical behavior from the not the principals, but from the agents. So the agents will start giving you or start doing something that are unethical or something that the company either encourages or doesn't know about or turns a blind eye to. And that's a lot what happened with Wells Fargo. Also, there's stock-based compensation, stock options, and stock grant. All a little bit different, but basically the company gives you some stocks for your services. All right, let's do a poll, shall we? All right. So Wells Fargo Bank, how much extra a year does Wells Fargo Bank make off of overdraft fees? Come on, let's go. 69 of 90. Only got 90 people today. We're missing some people. All right, wake up out there. Answer the poll. You know, I do this just to make sure you're awake. So far, 200 million seems to be the most popular answer. Only two people think 500,000. 2 million's a good answer. 200 million's a good answer. Nobody thinks it's 2 billion, or hardly anybody thinks it's 2 billion or 500,000. All right. I'll give you just a few more seconds. There's 9 of you still sleeping. All right. So the winner is 200 million. So 53% said 200 million. Second one is 2 million, 25%, and then 18% 2 billion. All right. So Wells Fargo sat around and think, how can you rack up overdraft fees? What is a good way to do that? Well, they figured it out. So they take your highest payment, or the highest debit that comes out of your account first. And if you have others that are coming after that, you're going to get, like, instead of covering like 6 of them that are small ones and not covering the one big one and only get one overdraft fee, they do the one big one that covers your bank account, and the other 6 of them don't, so they can charge you 6 different overdraft fees. So if they do it that way. So the dollar amount is $2 billion in 2019. So that's 2 billion, not million, billion dollars that Wells Fargo did off of overdraft fees in 1 year. 1 year. So do you think they have the best interests of their customers in mind? Or do they have the best interests of their stockholders in mind?
I mean, it might just be themselves versus the stockholders.
Well, it's it's basically, that's how you make profit, is by doing that. So they made profit off of their own customers of $2 billion a year on overdraft fees. All right. But that's not the only thing Wells Fargo did. You know, they were also in 2016, fake account scandal. They actually got caught for this. They got fined. I forget what they got fined. I wonder if I put it down. I don't think I put it down. They got fined something like a couple of $1 million, but made $10 million off it. They made over double of what they did. So federal regulations revealed Wells Fargo employees secretly created millions in unauthorized bank and credit card accounts with their customers knowing it, without them knowing it. So basically, the incentive was for the employees to get bonuses based on how many accounts they opened up. So they opened up fake ones, and not only did they open up fake accounts, they charged the customers a fee for this because they would get charged a monthly fee. They would never send them the credit cards or never let them know that they actually have these accounts. So what happened is they pay for performance bonuses, promoted or fired. So if your manager says, hey, you need to open up 100 new accounts every month, and there's not enough business to do that, how are you going to do that? And if you don't do it, you're going to get fired. So there's a lot of shady, unethical things going on at Wells Fargo, and that all, it starts from the top down. So the Federal Reserve punishes Wells Fargo is unprecedented move. The Fed says that bank won't be allowed to grow as an asset. That's Janet Yellen now, who is our new finance, whatever, Biden appointed her to some thing. She actually put a cap on how big Wells Fargo can grow for the time being because they kept doing all this crap. The bank fired approximately 5,300 people because of this. Almost $3 billion in fines, and there you go, $5 billion made from customers just in that one scandal. So the purpose of the corporation: fake accounts but real fees attached. Wells Fargo foreclosure hustle. They foreclosed on a bunch of houses that was illegal, the way they did it. The overdraft scam, 800,000 fake auto insurance policies that were put onto car loans that weren't supposed to be there. And because the people weren't able to pay that extra money, they possessed 25,000 cars. Illegally seizing service member cars when the service members were out of the country. They illegally seized them and took them back. Preying on the elderly and underage Native Americans. Overcharging business owners on credit card fees, which I got money back on that because they did that to me. So what about Wells Fargo's ethics, or lack of ethics, I should say? So where do you think this behavior comes from? Does it come from the stockholders? Stockholders didn't know anything about this. Does it come from the management? Absolutely. And in Wells Fargo's case, the ethical behavior and all of this, the culture, came directly from the CEO, the president of the company. So the mission statement of, we all know what a mission statement is. It's pretty much what the company says that their objectives, values, and core ethics are. Wells Fargo's mission statement is basically, it is never, they wake up in the morning to make money. And that's what they do. They don't say how they're going to make it. They don't say they're going to be ethical about making it. They say, we're going to make money, and that's it. It's never the other way around. That's all we're going to do. So, by the way, 50,000 employees are going to be laid off between 2020 and 2021. They don't care about their employees. They don't care about their customers. All they care about is their stockholders and making money. So Johnny here was the CEO, the chairman, chief executive officer of Wells Fargo for quite a few years, and almost all of this happened under his vision and values. Our ethics are the sum of all the decisions each of us make every day, is what his cop-out was. So he pretty much blamed all of his junior managers for all the stuff that happened. So Johnny is barred now from ever working at a bank. He had to pay $17.5 million in connection with the scandals at Wells Fargo. Of course, so he made over $100 million being the CEO of the company over this time period. So $17.5 million is nothing. It's a drop in the hat. That's on top of his salary that he gets every year, and then all the stock options that he cashed out before he left, which he made billions on. So former head of Wells Fargo Community Bank, Carrie, she's still fighting all the allegations. So Wells Fargo says it's not will not make any remaining compensation payments. They've already paid hundreds of millions of dollars out in compensation payments. So this is kind of like saying, the cat's already out of the bag. Too bad, so bad. We're sorry, but we're not going to do anything more about it. So Charlie is the new CEO. So he's been the CEO for since October of October of 20 or 19. So he's been appointed. So far, he seems to be doing a pretty good job, but not too much has changed. And you guys don't hear anything about Wells Fargo. I'm a bank member. I've been a bank member for years, and if I didn't do this article, I wouldn't have known if they changed the CEO or not. So, all right, questions about anything? Ethical, unethical? And how many people here are still members of Wells Fargo Bank? Still have an account with them, still do business with them? You guys are going to light up my chat box, aren't you?
Like, are we a part of it just because of apathy, or, you know?
Well, I do have an account with Chase also, but the problem is all the banks are the same. Chase got boinked for doing a bunch of unethical stuff too. All the banks do. Bank of America was laundering money for the drug cartel, you know, so it's not like there's any real ethical bank other than bank locally, which there's very few. Navy Federal Credit, I guess I could bank with them since my son was in the Navy. But yeah, most of the banks are very, very unethical. They're doing a lot of things. I have B of A, and they are bad about overdraft fees too. Yes. So all the banks, well, actually, Wells Fargo set the precedence for that. It's not illegal. They're the ones who did that with everybody. Everybody copied them. They said, "Oh, you guys can make $2 billion doing that. We should do that too." Yeah, and that's another thing too, is the banks close down or they get bought out. I had, you know, it's funny. My wife had some bank, I forget it was, and it's been bought out 4 times. 4 times. It's now U.S. Bank, but it was bought out 4 times. I was with Great American Bank before Chase, and that bank was bought out 3 times before it finally became Chase. So, you know, like in most industries that are mature, you're going to find a few companies are going to run everything. Pretty much it is Chase is the #1 bank. Wells Fargo is #2. B of A, I think, is #3. And then there are some local banks, but they're all just as bad as far as what comes with ethics. All right, final exam Thursday, 3/18, 10 p.m. Okay, so you have until 10 o'clock at night. 11:59. I'm not going to give you those extra 2 hours. Sorry. I don't know. That's when your final is scheduled in the actually in the through the university. So extra credit due 3/10/21. The extra credit is the iEval credit for turning in screenshot of submitted valuation. Email it to me. Okay. So who else is going to give you extra credit for just filling out a survey? Okay. Final project is due 3/15. You'll be evaluating each other on this project. The evaluations will be done on iLearn. You're going to turn in a sheet, and you're going to evaluate each member of your group. So you're going to say, hey, this guy didn't do a good job. There's this girl never showed up to any of the meetings, blah, blah, blah. So you'll be able to evaluate each other. And I expect you to be honest with that, because I will downgrade people. I have given people C's and the rest of the group got A's because they did absolutely no work whatsoever. All right. You will be evaluating each member. Yes, you will evaluate yourself. Some will get lower grades for participation. A third of the team gives a negative evaluation. If just one person says something negative about you, I'm not going to do anything because I understand there are conflicts all the time. But if a third of the team, so 3 or 4 people say, hey, this person didn't do anything, then I am actually going to take off some points. Okay. And if you come to me and say, hey, why did you not give me a good score? I will say these. I'm not going to say who it is, but I'm going to say at least 3 people from your group said you didn't participate, or you didn't do your job, or you didn't do this. And that's why I gave you less points. So example, team score gets 90, individual score can be 0. And that was a specific example that I did for a guy. He didn't communicate with his team at all. He didn't respond. He didn't write anything on the paper. He didn't do anything. So he got an absolute 0. This is what your group evaluation is going to look like. You can actually add more, add more to this. So you say Jeff was a team leader. He organized everything. Alicia helped organize it. Ricardo is participated equally, arranged meetings. Joe and Jill, you know them both, participated equally. I think Jill's probably going to actually do more work than Joe though this time. Ying and Yang, those are the two foreign exchange students that came in, and then Nick and Neck. All right. That's my attempt at humor. All right, anything else? All right, so I'm going to meet with some groups.